So over these past few months right here in the San Diego real estate market, we've had some clients reach out who are going to be moving out of their condo or townhouse and getting into that next property of a single family home. So that's what we're making this video about. Give you 5 essential tips on what to know when going through this, because there's going to be some challenges, especially depending on what market you're coming from, depending on what market you're going to, and some things that you need to know if you are potentially making this move. So we're going to jump into all that and let you know what's going on. As always, I'm Chris Erickson, and we got a real estate crew. If you are in this situation and you want to start that conversation, all of our contact info is in the description right down below. Feel free to reach out. Let's start chatting. Or you could also just download this buyer's guide that's popping up right now, give you some insight into the entire process as well. But let's get into it right now. So the first thing is understanding the market dynamics, because if you are moving from a condo or townhome to a single family home, like I said, if you are in a specific area, like let's say a few years ago you were doing this and you were moving from downtown San Diego going up to North County San Diego, those two markets were completely different. There was a lot different going on in the condo market, where it was a bit softer. Things were taking a little longer to sell. While in North County, there was a hotter market. There was things going off pretty much, I mean, I guess downtown too a little bit, but the market times were a lot quicker. There was a lot more multiple offer situations. So it's important to know the trends in where you are coming from and where you are going to help you start setting up that timeline, which we'll get into in later steps here. And in certain times, coming from a softer market going into a more competitive market, you potentially might find when you are selling your place, it's going to take, like I said, some more time. So planning with all of that. Going into the new place, you're going to have a little more pressure as far as writing offers. And this is all market dependent on what's going on at that time. And I know a lot of folks are in the same boat. For my own situation, I bought my house in 2013. Now I have kids. Now we are potentially going to be looking at single family homes over these next few years. But the property ladder of going from get into initially what you can get into first, that's usually those townhomes or condos in different areas. You build up equity over time as you are building that appreciation, and then you are ready to get into that next home. So there's a lot of folks out there going through this. The next step that you have to think about is the timing, and it has a little bit to do with what I just was talking about, because when you're thinking about timing, and let's say condos and single family homes are both going up at the same rate. Let's say they are both going up at 5% per year. In both markets, you're going to find that a 5% increase on a $700,000 condo is going to be different than a price increase on a $1.3 million home of that same 5%. You'll see that the percentages in just from the dollar amount from that condo, even though it's still 5%, it's going to be less than that $1.3 million house. So when both markets are rising at the same time, even at that 5%, it's going to be more in a dollar amount for that $1.3 million home, obviously because it is more expensive. Now, if you are in a dropping market where both are coming down at the same time, you're going to find that a 5% drop in the condo market is going to be less than a 5% drop in the single family home. So there is some opportunity there where you can get into the other property. But in that case, if both are softening a little bit, the market's probably a little slower. Now, if we're in a stabilizing market, which is something that we're starting to see right now, we're seeing a little bit of a sideways movement. Now, in single family homes, the median price is still rising by a little bit. The condo market has seen a little bit of a plateau. But when you are buying in one of these stabilizing markets where both markets are relatively the same, you're not having a big gap between where condo is selling for and where a single family home is selling for as far as market demand, as far as days on market, it's a lot easier for your timing going from one property to the next. And if you were doing this a few years ago, let's say you were selling your home here and you were going to get the next property, but properties were going up so much. So you might have gotten a little premium on your condo, but by the time you actually purchase a home, the price had gone up significantly. So there was a bigger gap in the dollar amounts you were getting. You were getting a little more on the front end from your condo, but then you were also paying a bit more on the single family home when you got into there. Now, right now, when we're going into a little bit more of a stabilized market, we're seeing a little bit more of a healthier market, still in a seller's market for both condos and for single family homes, but it's not as frenzied as it was back in 2022, 2021, parts of 2023. I don't know why I went in that order, but nonetheless, all of those years is when it was nuts. So you were definitely going to sell your house super quick during those times, but getting into the next house was a lot more of a challenge. So right now in the current market, when people are buying a single family home, so you're coming from a condo, that's still somewhat of a seller's market. You're going into a single family home. You're still getting potentially, depending on where your neighborhoods are, where you're looking, you might see a little bit of competition, but you're not competing against 5, 10, 15 offers usually in most cases. So it's a little bit more of an easier move, and you're not selling for a little bit of premium here and then buying at a much larger premium on this side. So it's kind of a sideways move at this point. Step number 3 is making the decision, should you sell your current home first or should you buy the next home first? And it comes with pros and cons on either side. One of the best ways, I'll get to it right here in a second, but a few years ago, the strategy might have been, okay, let's, if you can, get a mortgage ready, purchase that second property. You know the first property is going to sell like that. You know you're not going to have a ton of overlap. There wasn't too much risk in that front. But as we go into our current market, that strategy could definitely have some risk where you buy first and sell later, because let's say you do have some overlap. Let's say you do qualify for both mortgages, because that's what you're going to have at both times, but you buy the next home first. You still have your current property. It's an easy move, right? Because you could get out of your property, move all your stuff in. If you have a little bit of remodeling or anything to do, you could get in there and get that taken care of in the new property while you'll still live in your other property. At this point, you're going to have 2 mortgages. From there, you're going to move into the new property, and then you're going to prep the old property, the condo or the townhome. You're going to get it ready for the market. You're going to put it on the market. It's going to potentially sit there. Maybe it does sell that first week, but generally over these past few months, we've seen it take a little bit longer. So you're looking like 30-ish days or so to sell the property, plus another 30 to 60 days in escrow. So that's another probably 60 to 90 days that you do still have that property. So there is going to be some overlap in that. There is some risk in that. The least risky way would be selling your current home, get the cash out, and now finding that middle ground while you're searching for your next home. It's not the easiest thing. You're going to run across some things like, okay, maybe you have some family around, you can live with them for a little bit. You're like, oh, that doesn't sound like a great situation, but you could also find maybe short-term rentals. We work with a lot of relocation clients, and sometimes they move out here, sell their property where they're coming from, move out here and get a short-term rental for a few months. Usually you can go on Airbnbs, VRBOs, whatever, and they do have monthly rates for some of these places where you get a 2-3 month rental, something like that. But doing it this way, you take all the risk out of potentially having that other property sit for a while. You're adding up mortgage, you are adding up monthly expenses, you're still having electricity on, you're still having landscapers, you're still having everything that was going on at the previous property, and you do have to qualify for both mortgages if you are buying first and selling later. But the selling first and buying later, sell your current property, take the funds, get a little time in the middle, go find that next property. Yeah, like I said, there's going to be some stress. There's going to be 2 moves. You're going to have to potentially get some storage for your stuff, but it is going to be the least risky way. Now, some people ask, okay, can I put my current home on the market, get that in escrow, go start looking for properties contingent on my property selling? You can. It's just when sellers on the other side, what we've seen, what we've typically come across, getting those contingent offers accepted, contingent on the sale of your home, isn't always successful, especially if there is any competition on the property. It's going to be a lot more difficult, because if they're looking at your offer that is contingent on something happening, on your property selling in this case, and the other offer, maybe it's not even as much cash, maybe it's a little bit less, whatever the case may be, but it's not contingent. Let's say both are the same. one contingent, one not. Usually a seller is going to be going with that non-contingent offer. It's just less risk. So we have seen some contingent offers get accepted, but it is probably not the ideal strategy in a somewhat of a competitive market. The next step is like figuring out your budget, getting that next mortgage ready so you can figure out how much the next property is going to be for your monthly expenses, property, interest, taxes, insurance, plus if there's any HOA, and getting that dialed in, taking potentially down payment from the current home you are selling, from your townhome or your condo, moving that into the next property. So all of this is going to be talking with the lender. But one of the first steps is getting an accurate property valuation of your property. So that's why it's super important to get an agent who knows the area, who knows that current market, who knows everything on the market, everything that has recently sold, everything that's currently pending, everything going on there, to get an accurate idea of what your property could sell for at today's market value. And so what we do when we're working with clients, we'll get them, we call it a CMA, a comparative market analysis, running through all that, and we'll run through it all with them to give them a good idea of what their property would sell for. The more important number is going to be what you net, what you actually walk away with from that property. So let's say you bought it a few years ago, you purchased a property for 350 grand, now you're selling it for 650 grand, and you're like, okay, cool, I'm selling it for 650, I'm gonna walk away with that. You're getting numbers in your head as far as like, okay, what could I potentially put down on the next property? But you got to take into account what the net sheet is. So what is you're going to walk away with, how much you still owe on your mortgage. There's closing costs involved with selling your property, from escrow, title, potentially agent fees. All of that stuff would be included in there. Prorated taxes. There's just a lot of stuff that goes into that as well. So seeing the finalized number, plus if you are selling it for a significant amount above, you potentially will have capital gains tax. Talk to your CPA, talk to your financial advisor, get all those numbers dialed in so you can see what you're actually going to walk away with at the end. And even at that, the agent says, okay, we think you could sell this at $650,000. We always like to play it a little bit more conservative. Let's say you're going to do 625 or 600, just to give yourself a little cushion in there so you're not overextending yourself when you do talk to the lender and you are running through all these numbers and getting pre-approved for the next property you're buying. That way, when your home does sell, if you do have a little extra, it's a little bit of bonus, but you're not overextending yourself on potentially the down payment or what your monthly payment might be. It's just a more realistic number, and we love to add that little buffer just to make sure you're all set. And this step's super important because it's going to give you a much clearer picture of what you are going to buy down the road, what you are approved for, not even what you're approved for, but as you're running those numbers with the lender, what you're comfortable with as far as your monthly payments. So maybe in your head, you were looking at Zillow, you're looking at all these, and you were thinking, oh, I'm looking at $1.5, $1.6 million homes. But I'm actually more comfortable when after we ran the numbers that 1.2 to 1.3, or after talking to a lender, it could be opposite. Maybe you're thinking we're looking at $1 million homes. When you actually run the numbers, you are more comfortable with 1.2 to 1.3, somewhere in there. And once you get that dialed in, you can really get a very good picture for the next step, which is actually looking for the next home, preparing to list your home, getting ready to buy that next home. When you are set up on the searches, you're probably already looking, like I said, Redfin, Zillows, whatever the case may be, but getting connected with your agent and dialing in those search parameters to figure out wants, needs, goals, deal killers, anything that is super important for your next property. And maybe it's just those automated emails, but it's also a good idea. Let's say you're looking in a specific neighborhood. You can see all the homes coming up. You can see the new homes that pop up every day as they're getting sent to you, but also let's go back a few months and see what has sold in there. And let's say there has been 3, 4, 5 different homes that have sold in this little neighborhood that you're looking in. You can go back, look at which ones have sold, what price points they sold at, go with your agent and be like, okay, I would have purchased this home at this amount, at this purchase price. And it helps give you a better idea of what to expect, but it also helps your agent get a better idea of what to expect. So you can really dial in that search and make sure you're not missing anything. Make sure you're understanding the market trends at your own property, because if you're living at your property, you usually have a little bit better idea of what's going around. You've seen for sale signs, you've talked to neighbors, you kind of get an idea of that current market. But as always on this channel, we're saying it's super important to know what's happening in not only the market that you're from and that you're selling in, but the market that you're going to, because as we mentioned a few times in here, they could be super different in what's going on in these different markets. And not only like, even if you're going townhome to townhome, but especially if you're going townhome to what we're talking about here, a single family home, because sometimes you do get a little bit of a different market in the condo market compared to what's happening in the single family market. So that's why it's super important to stay tuned right here. We're going to let you know what's going on in the San Diego real estate market, so you get a good idea of what's going on. And if you are ready, you do want to start that conversation. As a quick reminder, I'm Chris Erickson. All of our contact info is in the description right down below, because we got your back when making the move here in San Diego.